You were born to decent city folk in a house with a country name, and you walked the streets your father walked to grow up just the same. So you worked in the school and you kept the rule, crying the tinker doon, for he'd spend his time on the long grey line and he wouldna be tied at all. Spend his time on the long grey line and he wouldna be tied at all. So you worked hard in a college room, career was I in mind. You ne'er got down the travelling round, you says there I was time, and you never gave yen moment's thought to what it means to be free. Not a thinker's time on the
Edinburgh, a delightful mix of old and new, tradition and innovation, a city that moves one inexplicably. So I came to Edinburgh, the jewel of Scotland, to research folk music in the capital. There are many haunts for those who love the old tunes, but the two main places in the old town, that which is the more ancient part of the city, are the Green Mantle, newly reopened again and more than likely to succeed, and the queen of folk music pubs, the Royal Oak. So it is here in the Royal Oak I began my musical journey, starting with an interview with the well-respected Alan Hunter.
She began to doubt, but you stuck it out, working 9 to 5. While the tinker's fine on the long grey line, I keeping the dream alive. Tinker's fine on the long grey line, I keeping the dream alive. Well, they're more to your life than they teach in the school, more to see and hear, far more to a man on a patch of land, and the finish show his years. And the saddest sight is the fading light of a man whose chance is gone. I'll give some time to the long grey line, and I'll ken when I'm bound for home. Give some time to the long grey line, and I'll ken when I'm bound for home. Give some time to the long grey line, and I'll ken when I'm bound for home. When I was leaving Islay, my brother was already here. Most Highlanders, when they leave, go to Glasgow. But what's the point in going there when you don't know anybody and you've got a brother in Edinburgh? So Edinburgh was the obvious choice. Come down here, stayed with my brother until I found my feet, got set up, and boom.
Did you have any formal education?
I wouldn't say it was formal, because I actually did an honours degree in history with the Open University.
Great.
But you work on it. I couldn't afford to study full time. Just couldn't afford it. I had to keep working. So it takes you 6 years minimum.
And do you do any teaching now?
Occasionally I've done some EFL teaching.
And do you like that?
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. You know, I think it's wonderful when you go to places like Stirling and Falkirk and teach them to speak English. It's marvellous. But no, joking apart, it is good. It's nice.
Well, I guess, so you've been playing folk music then in Edinburgh for over 20 years. Is that right?
Yep.
And it's because you've had that much time
put in? You've seen changes, I imagine.
Well, I've seen a lot of changes over the years.
And I don't mean in the wide field. I'm talking about folk music itself.
Yeah, I mean, the music itself, the approach has changed over the years.
Explain.
There's been a great deal of what they call New Age folk, but that's just bull. That's nonsense. It's not. It's turning the clock back to the way things would have sounded maybe 300 years ago. Different instruments being brought in, amalgamating and so on. A good example is a cittern, which had disappeared off the face of the earth for a long, long time, and in the past 20 years or so it's re-emerged. And it's a lovely, lovely instrument, and it originates in the British Isles.
Right?
Yeah. And nobody's quite sure whether it's Scottish, Irish or English. Nobody can be absolutely sure. I prefer to think that it's Scottish. Yeah. But I can't prove it, so hey.
You'll just think the way you want to think and
well, I will
let everybody else think the way they want to.
Pretty much. But it's a gorgeous instrument. It just sounds so, so lovely.
So, you were talking about New Age folk music versus the classical folk music, right? Is that basically...
Well...
Is that how you would term it, or how would you term it?
Well, if you go back and listen to some of the stuff that was getting produced and knocked out in the early 60s, you get the likes of the Clancys, Tommy Makem,
yes,
the Corries, the Dubliners were on the go, well, still
the Tanner
going.
Weavers?
The Tanners, yeah, who are still going in their
what do you think of Battlefield Band?
79,000th lineup.
Yeah, right.
You know?
What do you think of Battlefield Band?
I think Battlefield Band's exceptional. I think they've always been good. I know several of the guys that used to play with them, but it's Alan Reid's baby. He created it, and the sound they make is the sound he wants.
It's unique,
yeah.
Right.
He's got his own way of doing things, and he's bloody good at it. He really is. Very, very good. He's an exceptional musician. I take my hat off to him.
Well, I wonder if you've ever heard of Tony Cuff.
Well, sadly, Tony's dead.
Yes, I know.
Yeah. Used to play with a band
Was he
called
not brilliant? Ossian, right,
Ossian,
yeah.
Tony was... I don't know how to put this without sounding like some arsehole just shining the light of the sun on somebody. Okay. But Tony Cuff was an exceptionally talented man. He dug up an awful lot of old songs that had been lost and resurrected them. And on top of that, one of the things was he couldn't resist taking a song, rearranging it, and sometimes he wrote his own tune to go with it instead of the tune that had been played to before. And one of the ones on my next CD, the arrangements by Tony Cuff. I don't say that in tribute to
I absolutely adore Tony Cuff myself. I first learned of him back about 10 years ago. He came to a Scottish Games near my hometown, and he was playing there, and I was just mesmerised. I was just...
Superb musician.
And he had Jerry O'Sullivan, or Jerry...
Yeah.
Yeah, Jerry O'Sullivan.
Yeah.
The whistle player. Whistle
Fluter.
flute, right.
Fluter.
And he played whistle as well.
Fluter.
But yeah, it was great, and I bought his Tony's CD when first I came to Caledonia, and I fell in love. I just fell in love, and I just was following his career, and I could never get to see him. And then And
He's
then
gone.
I said, why isn't he touring anymore? And then I find out he's dead. It just near broke my heart because he really was responsible a lot for bringing Scottish folk music to the States.
And even more so, I would say, Canada. He spent an awful lot